Hi guys, and welcome back to another Show on the Buffalo video. Hope you've all been well. And today we are covering a deck that's been covered a few times since its initial release back in Japan a while ago. And obviously we're coming into the Scarlet and Violet meta soon in the UK. So this is a post-rotation list that I've been working on because PTCG Live, for whatever reason, has been pushed directly into the next rotation, which is absolutely fine. It's given all the players that take practicing seriously a chance to practice for post rotation, and therefore have them practice for EUIC and whatnot. So today, we are covering the Gardevoir EX deck. Now, there's many abilities that are classified as broke. Energy acceleration is always one of them. However, infinite acceleration, based on or dependent on how many energies you actually have in the discard pile, is ridiculously powerful, and it also fuels any of the psychic attackers that has psychic energy attack costs based on how many energy they've got attached to them. For example, the other Gardevoir that we attack with in this deck, that not only can accelerate even more energy to itself via its own ability Shine Arcana, but it's attack Brainwave that does a base 60 with 30 more for each energy attached to it. So there's that, and there's Zacian V, which also has the, well, it's basically the same attack, you might say, just with a different name, and with the ability that helps put on a little bit of early pressure of getting energies out of the deck, so you don't have to find them with your fog crystals and stuff. So there's obviously, like I say, a few builds of this on YouTube here, there and everywhere, and my idea behind this is the only thing that's ever bad about a stage 2 deck is how fragile they are. Now, what I mean by that is, if you can't set them up quick enough, if you can't find your basics quick enough, then the deck will fall apart and you won't even get to play your own deck, regardless of whether your opponent is drawing exceptionally well or not. Because if you're not setting up your own board, then how you're meant to stay in the game. So, with that being said, this deck gives me very much like a more fragile version, or more fragile vibes of Zoroark GX back in the day, because we do have access to this Curlier, which the ability refinement, or trading as I call it, is exactly the same as Zoroark GX is. So because you get to discard a card and draw 2, and I thought to myself, well, one of the best things about Zoroark back in the day was that because it's had its own inbuilt draw engine, that you could play a few tech outs as much as you can get into a 60 card deck, whilst, you know, maintaining its maximum consistency. So there's some builds, for example, you might have seen that only run, say for example, 3 fog crystals or 3 level balls, whereas I've gone for the 4/4 of both. Because again, like, there's no sense in having more text in a deck or more powerful cards if you can't set up your board quick enough or find your Gardevoir EX quick enough to even initiate your general game plan, as it were. So I've gone for maximum consistency with the 4 battle VIP pass, fog crystal and level ball, and they also, obviously, level ball help you acquire your Curlies, start your trading and building up your hand, and, you know, making your players from there, sort of thing. Now, I've only gone for 2 Ultra Balls in my list. Some people play 3. However, there's not a lot of things that you want to discard in this deck. The only things you'll ever really want to discard are unused battle VIP passes or psychic energies, and the odd draw supporter here and there, because I play a single copy of Palpad. And that's exactly why I'm only running 2 Ultra Balls. Now, the reason I'm running Palpad and like the odd one-off supporter here and there is because of that trade ability that I was mentioning. Now, Zoroark was very flexible in the fact that it could trade, draw 8 cards, and then use essentially a VS Seeker or have the one-off supporters in their hands, play them, and then use a Palpad to shuffle them back in, or, you know, have the Verse Seeker. And it's the same with this. Like, I've accommodated for just singular copies of some supporters, as we can see here: Clara, Miriam, Serena, Worker, and Avery. And the reason why I've chosen Avery is because it's exceptional in the mirror match. It absolutely tears apart opponents' Gardevoir decks, and it can in some cases help against Lost Box as well, to make them, you know, get rid of things that they would potentially be able to use in the future. So it's good against them, and somewhat in Lugia as well, because if they bench attacks earlier and fill the bench up, they're obviously going to keep around their Archeops, so the Avery would force them to discard attackers in some aspects as well, which is another reason why I go for it. I've gone for 2 Temple Sinnoh in this deck because it's a lot more helpful against Lugia, which is one of the most dominant decks still going into the post-rotation. So Temple Sinnoh is great. Obviously, if you have access to Champions Festival, use that because it does allow you to get an additional attachment with the Shining Arcana, because you can push your HP back up by 10, which therefore allows you to use yet another of the Psychic Embrace to attach another energy to the Gardevoir, allowing its output to be much more huge. But I've gone for the cards in this deck that I'm realistically ever going to be able to get hold of. So this, you might say, for anyone interested in this deck, would be a somewhat budget version of the deck going into it post-rotation, and then if you feel like you like it, then you could invest in the Champions Paths, but they are difficult to come by here in the UK, so... And I couldn't even find any in English on eBay after looking recently as well, so there is that. So I've gone for a single copy of Worker because it is a Path out. Path obviously turns off the Gardevoir EX, and I was initially testing also a copy of Pumpkaboo. Pumpkaboo is really good in this deck, and rather than Professor's Research in this deck, I've gone for 2 copies of Zinnia's Resolve because this card it's extremely powerful, especially in the mirror match as well, especially against Miraidon, because they always obviously fill their bench. So a lot of the times in current meta, whether you're playing against Guardi or Miraidon, you're always going to draw the maximum 6 off it, majority of the time. And even against Lost Box, drawing like 4 or 5, which is just really good. And because it's only discarding 2, as opposed to Professor's Research, where you discard your entire hand, you get to be a little bit more conservative with your resources, while still actually claiming some cards into your hand to, to build up even further, use more trades and things like that. Depending on your sequencing for that turn, whatever strikes the necessity, basically. So yeah, I've gone for as consistent as possible. Only running the one-off Mew. Radiant Greninja is an absolute must. It just gets your energy in a discard, it gives you additional draw, so it functions as 2 things for this deck, which is extremely good. And with it being 130 HP as well, it can occasionally survive an attack as well when your opponent escape rupture or whatever the case may be, so it's good in that aspect as well. There is an argument to using Radiant Serena because it does again drop your HP down a little bit further, boost it back up a bit because it heals you, so therefore you could attach more with Psychic Embrace to the Shining Arcana Guardi, which is your main sacker. But again, that's neither here nor there. It's just personal choice. If you want to go ahead and test Radiant Serena, it's a good idea, but for consistency, Radiant Greninja is top of the charts for this. We are as well running a single copy of Ralts that has Memory Skip, because that attack it can come in useful in a pinch. And there is also the single copy of Mirage Deck earlier. There are so many times that this card has kept me in the game, I couldn't fathom to count, because I've not started enough basics, even with maxing out on all the item search that I've showed you in this deck list so far. But I have managed to, say for example, top deck a level ball, and rather than get a basic, I just get this Mirage Deck Curlier, which puts the other 3 refinement Curliers onto your bench, which then brings you back into the game, because then you've got draw 6 next turn, and potentially evolve into the other Shining Arcana Gardevoirs, and you've already got Curlies on your bench ready then as well, so that can evolve into the Gardevoir EX, so you're not having to faff about trying to find rare candy. So that's the be-all and end-all for this deck list anyway, and we shall get straight into some battles with it. So opponent's going to call a coin flip. And he's flipped tails. So I will go first, being a stage 2 deck, obviously. We're always a step behind with attacking with this, unless we are lucky enough to find an early rare candy. So this is the definition of not of the kind. Ralts. So we'll have a look through. We've got all our Ralts. We'll check the deck. We have 2 energy in hand, so we've prized 2 energy. We have all of our Curliers, all of our Gardevoirs, and we've prized a rare candy. So it's not great overall, but it's not the end of the world anyway. At least we're attacking turn 2, we're going to take on this Bidoof. Be able to Serena, depends on what my opponent's playing, probably empty the Temple Sinnoh out of our hand. We see my opponent Ultra Ball in. So it's likely to be some sort of Arceus Giratina deck, which should be fine. We should be able to uptrade like quite well against this. And you know what, the Judge actually probably somewhat helps. Actually helps quite a lot actually. My opponent doesn't have a Giratina down, so that's absolutely nothing to worry about. I think my first call is I'm just going to use Shining Arcana to try and get some additional card drawing for hand, because I need to find out where I was going, obviously, with this hand. Now we do know where we're going. We will be grabbing Ralts. And yet another Ralts. Because we've got to build up these things. Now, later on in the game, at least, the very least I can say about this setup, despite the fact that, you know, we didn't start with any battle VIPs, or very minimal item search, all things considered. And we have another rare candy, you know, if we get into places here. Now we get judged again. We only have 3 cards in hand, so I don't mind that. Now we will see how much my opponent gets to fill up their bench, and they don't at all apparently, would be the case here. Now it's very unlikely that we'd get this knockout. If we do, can't use actually have to shuffle Pokemon back in. So the thing is, we already have I don't want to judge my opponent, so if we find rare candy here, if we don't, which is fine. There's no point putting the Temple Sinnoh in play just yet, I don't think. Although if they top deck, I'm just trying to think what would be the best thing to do. Yeah, I don't think we need these at the moment. I think I'm just going to grab a Curlier, to be honest. Like, we need to start getting these things down as quick as possible. We have the Miriam for next turn as well, so we can actually just draw more, which is not a problem. We have no energy in the discard yet, but we've got 5 on our activation. Such a shame that we don't have as much as I would have liked here, but we know my opponent is not going to be... so, yeah, they use V-Guard energy, which is not a problem, and they're going to obviously go into this. The topic research, or they have all that in hand. I mean, now they can't use Trinity Nova, which is fine. They are filling up my board, so the next Zinnia's Resolve will be much better. my opponent got a hope on a square over here. I knew my opponent would play Path to the Peak, but it's not particularly an issue. So there's Gardevoir EX. We're going to Shine an Arcana first. So touch here. We will finally get an energy into the discard. And, well, my opponent will probably get rid of Squovit, but it's not an issue. I don't think there's any potential way they could do damage via Manaphy. It might just be better to Clara and attack this turn. We're hitting for 210, so... because this is an additional easy prize down the line. And they're already doing coaches. We're not in Roxanne range. But like neither me or my opponent opened up well here. Obviously. That goes without saying. My opponent will right hand here. So we'll have 7 energy in total and 8 with this. So I've got my prizes fully mapped out anyway. The one thing that my deck doesn't play, that a lot of decks do play, is the Sky Steel Stone. It just feels like a win harder sort of card for me. And again, I've gone for as much consistency as possible with the fragility of a stage 2 deck. And just having the odd one-offs here and there that our deck that has the high draw in it has access to those things. So there is no sense here in using my opponent's got Path to the Peak in play anyway, so I've got to think what's the best thing to do here. Obviously, we're going to trade that away. So we can still attack them this turn just to get it in play anyway. We will Shining Arcana. Use Level Ball, get one of these. Just try and plow through this deck as much as possible now. Because now we need to hit a path out. And I didn't check to see if my other... Don't be a bad player like me. I didn't check to see if my other Stadium or Worker was in play or anything like that. So now let's press all. So my Stadium is there. Worker is prized, unless I've used it already, which I have not. So the best we can hope for right now, regarding the amount of draw that we've got access to, the best thing to do would be to Avery, but he would then reduce that on the bench, so maybe it would be just to shuffle these back in actually. And we're not there yet. Still have some more things we can do, so not too much of an issue. Didn't quite get there. It's not too much of a problem. Get rid of these. We can still get there actually. Let's see if we can still get there. We won't be able to take the knockout, however, because we're benching this now. Oh no, there was no sense in getting that because I can't use it anyway because I'm past the peak. So we do simply just have to attach here and pass, I'm pretty certain. It's all going wrong, but we'll get there. My opponent's going to go down to 3 prizes. I should go down to 1. Just using Sharon's care for the turn, so I'm not too fussed about that. Now I can happily Avery anyway. I'm not sure if my opponent meant to use boss that turn. We're going down to a 1-card hand, or what will be back up to 5 here, and then 6 with the knockout on the Curlier. Let's see what shuffles back in. Judge. Judge and a boss, was it, I think? I don't like that this app just does that. It doesn't quite allow you to do things the way you should be able to do things. So I'm gonna start with Mew anyway, gonna thin through a card, potentially. There's the potential knockout hand, so we'll get a level ball. I don't know if there's anything left to grab off this, but we'll find out, I guess. It's a Curlier in deck. We do have to obviously rare candy this turn, and we need to find our stage amount. So start with Shining Arcana. Get an energy here. And we will... We're going to have to bench this anyway because we need to take the knockout this turn to be able to stay in the game. So let's see if we can find any energy towards it. If we can. This is not fun. I've got 5 cards in deck, and I can draw 4, which is fine actually. So we can rare candy this Gardevoir here, and we will use Zinnia's Resolve, and we won't be needing this or this for the rest of the game. And we got the stage amount, so that is absolutely fine. And it also turns off their thing as well, and with any luck, we'll get the worker out the prizes. So, second embrace. So we're already doing 30. We're already doing 90, sorry, so 120. 150. 180. 210. 240. 270 and 300. So no need to accelerate anymore. I don't know if it's of any consequence if we accelerate anymore, because obviously we're on 300 anyway. So I mean, we could always accelerate here now and palpard our copy of boss in, and just the copy of boss. We can can bench this as well now anyway. And it's just whether or not this is worth doing here or not. And I think it is, just for the boss. Well, we can do the boss on this arena. So that allows us to take on the Arceus as well. And yeah, that is 300. And again, we need one of these to be worker, or we do just lose. And there's worker. So, at least it's only if my opponent has another path. At least now we know there's 3 cards plus the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there will be 13 cards in deck if my opponent, well, 11 cards in deck if my opponent Roxanne's. There's the path. And there's no Roxanne, so that's game over unfortunately for my opponents. And that does really just outline the strength of this deck. I'm hoping that, yeah, I was going to say I couldn't remember if I could use worker or not, but yeah, I definitely could. And my opponent's just going to consume it, obviously. So that's that was a real highlight of why Zacian is an OHKO machine in this deck. Like, that's why I've run 2 of the Zacian as well. Not many builds run 2, and you could almost say that because I'm running 2, it would warrant the Sky Seal Stone. But again, it's just a win harder card for me, and there's not a lot of space in this deck due to it being a stage 2. So due to that fact, that's why I've got to obviously, you know, accommodate for everything else that keeps the deck consistent. I'd rather have consistency than a win harder card. But anyway, we'll be back for the next game. So back for another game of our Gardevoir deck. See if I can get a better start, better opening hand with all the consistency items, potentially see some first turn battle VIP passes or something. I do get to go first, which is always handy. No basics, and so is my opponent. This is not good, but this is what I was saying about we're against Mew, I think. Could be interesting. I haven't played a Mew deck pretty much this entire format on this game, so see how this goes. Hopefully my opponent doesn't get the turn 1 escape rope, because we are currently sitting on the Mirage earlier. And we get the Battle VIP pass, which is also good. So we get to see 1 this game at the very least. Might even be able to see 2. We have prize of routes. We play. It's just the routes. Don't know why. Oh, there we go. For some reason, it wasn't letting me conceal cards. But this should be fine, and we can just pass turn there. And even if they have the opening with the Air Fusion Strike, Meloetta, Fusion Strike Energy, whole Wombo combo, shenanigans. I do get to, if my opponent doesn't judge me, which is very likely, if my opponent doesn't judge me, then we have the Avery in hand, we have Templar Sinnoh, we have Energy for Raging Gardevoir, Raging Ranger even, the Mirage deck earlier, probably about to get judged. Yeah, of course. So now we're going to find that again. But at least we know we're not getting attacked this turn, which is somewhat okay. The hand could be better, it's got to be said, but see if my opponent gets the turn 1 path. Again, it's not too much of an issue to do. Choice belts there and there. So not a lot from my opponent, which is good. And you know what? I'll take that as a top deck, if I'm quite honest. We've prized quite a lot of our curliers, I've just noticed. So we'll go Zinnia's Resolve. And we'll start with trade number 1. Always try and dig as deep as possible with this deck before using Mysterious Tail, of course. And there's... why is it asking me to choose? Oh, no valid cards. Okay, I was like, why is it asking me to choose one if there is none? So I think it's just a slow turn where I don't want to bench this just yet. Although it could help me see the attack next turn. I've already got 5 on a discard. So it would bait my opponent to... he needs switch boss. I'm just not going to bench it, I don't think. I think I'd rather just attach energy here and pass, and keep hold of the Temple of Sinnoh as well. Don't want my opponent taking a too large prize lead. And so he's got the energy, got the Mew, hasn't used his V-Star power yet. I'm probably likely to get judged again here. This is why I've been testing a version of this deck at home here that has Pumpkaboo in, because obviously with the full font crystals, 4 level balls and such, he has literally just used Forest Seal Stone for a judge, and it drew me into a cracker's hand, I've got to say. Like, this is an insane hand. My opponent needs Escape or switch cards, that as well. My opponent use any of his power tablets, but yeah, that's power tablet number 1. It's just doing his draw more because he's obviously Transparent Path. Now he's cross switcher in to get the Curlier, which is fine. It's just doing a lot of things, like unnecessary things. Lost City, not the end of the world, and get the Temple of Sinnoh for that. Losing the Curlier is not great. I'm pretty sure the routes underneath does go to the bin, doesn't it? Apparently not. Across this game, does it not? I wasn't entirely sure about that. I'm not sure if that's a glitch or something. So we're going to start with Mysterious Tail. We do get another energy to stick in the bin. It is possible to draw into everything here. I'm just thinking of the right way to do it. So we've got 6 there, 1 here, so that's 8. 8 times 3 is 240. I need, I think, 10 energy, don't I? So 10 is 3. No, I need 9. So how do we go about doing that? Go here, here. I would need more this, it would seem. So this has to find me an energy right now. This trade must absolutely find me an energy because I've got 8. And with 9 I can take the KO. So we'll go here. We'll go and get rid of the useless mana fee. And this Curlier. Just to get this out of the deck. I'm not going to be using boss orders this turn. And so I've got 7, 8 with the attachment, 9 from hand. I'm pretty certain that's knockout. Time to find out if I'm good at maths or not. Did not find an out to the Lost City, which is somewhat frustrating. 1, 2, 3. The thing about this app is it's very slow with the, you know, putting damage counters on and all the rest of it. I'm really not a fan of how slow it is, and I'm hoping that the developers will sort it out at some point. Like the bugs I get on playing this on my phone is ridiculous. Like right now, for example, I am recording on my PC, thankfully. So this should be 310 exactly. Yeah. So I can count, which is good. And I might just secure this now. This basically ensures me game. 1, 2, 3. Assuming my opponent doesn't get past me, but I still have both my Temples of Sinnoh. I have Serena for draw support, Avery for draw support, Curlier for draw support, can open with Mew. So we're going to get judged, which is good. But I'm likely to get judge pathed here, I would imagine. And now have the Gardevoir for draw support as well. So, am I going to get path to the peak? That is the question. He's just discarded one, so he must have a second one in his hand. You would definitely think he's got a second one in his hand. Unless he's trying to go for KO on this, but if he goes for KO on this, then well, there's the path. Which is fine. I think. Goes down to 3, and this is why I don't run like Drapion or Forest Sealstone in this deck. It's just such a win harder scenario. And I think here, if I go, we'll see what's on the deck first, so I'll see what I can get hold of this. Don't need the rare candies, so it would be better to discard that with Serena. And we can attach here. I don't know whether it's worth going for the worker, but I probably wouldn't hit the worker anyway, so we're going to discard 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I didn't hit the worker, so that's alright. We would refinement away the Avery. There's a temple. Done deal, isn't it, really? See how much damage I can get off with the Shining Arcana. No, unfortunately. I wanted some additional damage there, but it's not a problem. So we'll go here, and then we've got 8 left. And my opponent concedes. Because you can't get a final attack off on this game for the life of you. It's just my damage output on this game. I don't know if it matters. Oh, well, they're cool, aren't they? Look at the nice casual glitch. Don't know whose cards are what there, but it's all good. So we are going to go back to the deck list. So I didn't get to show off many of the choices that I've decided to go for with the various techs and things and choices. I did get to show off having the 2 Zacians being incredible, the choice of having 2 stadiums to replace Path to the Peak being incredible, you know, really coming in clutch at the end there. Didn't get really to see much of Worker happen, or the choice of Miriam and Clara, but the amount of time that I've used them in past gameplay is insane. I can't even think how much I've used them. The Zinnia's Resolve, you've seen how much getting Judge Path, like having 2 Zinnia's Resolve was so helpful, as opposed to if I'd had research in those hands, I might have been discarding resources that I didn't want to do, whilst having Zinnia's Resolve, although it can only maximum draw you 1 card less than research. 6 is still an awful lot, especially if you factor in the refinements from the Curlier afterwards and whatnot. Got to see the Mew take its place and the Raging Greninja do a lot. I didn't get to see much from Manaphy, unfortunately, and I don't know if we got to see Mirage Step at all, but it's definitely worth playing Mirage Step. Like, I was playing for Refinement at first, and when I switched it up, I was so much happier with the Mirage Step. The lack of game losses due to Mirage Step, and you know, due to not being able to be donked, basically, just accelerates your board so much quicker. So incredible card. And I think that's all for the deck list. Oh yeah, so I choose to go with 2 Boss and 1 Serena. It's just because there's not a lot of draw supporters in this deck, and you could potentially cut Serena for a Roxanne. Like, Roxanne is obviously insane in this deck because you haven't got any free prizes, and when they take 1 prize and a 2 prize organisation, they're down to 3, which means you can start using Roxanne and then pal-padding it back. So Roxanne is really good. That's another additional card you could use for it. But that's all for this video anyway. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope everyone gives it a go. And if you haven't already, please like the video. Please drop a subscribe button on the channel. And I would like to see you all for the next video where I might cover Miraidon. I'll see you all soon, guys.